Alright, hey guys, what's happening? I got the John Deere X570 out here today, and I wanted to do sort of an update video on this machine. There seems to be a lot of speculation on these new X500 series, the X570, X580, and X590, since they are still pretty much brand new models from John Deere. And I've noticed a lot of people have been, there's been a growing interest in them. A lot more people have been buying them, and I've posted a couple videos of this thing on YouTube in the past year or so that we've had it. Well, 10 or 11 months. We bought it at the end of last summer, so we haven't quite had it a year yet. But I've posted a couple videos. I posted an in-depth review video back in November, and I posted a video of me putting some upgrades on it back in March. And I've noticed those videos have gained a lot of popularity, and I've had a ton of people commenting on my videos and private messaging me, asking me things like, how do you like the machine? Why did you choose this machine? What are some things you like about it? What are some things you don't like about it? Is it worth the price? So I figured I would make this video to sort of, touch on some of those questions and answer any other questions that some of you guys might have. Now, those of you guys who follow my channel regularly and know me, I run a small commercial lawn care business around the neighborhood and around my town. And this is my main mower that I use for doing all that stuff. I used to have a John Deere 316 all restored. The thing was a really nice machine, and then it caught fire on me. I'm still kind of upset that happened, because those old machines are really tough and worth a good chunk of money in good condition. But it happened right before I went off to college, and so the lawn care was starting to wind down a little bit, and my dad was going to take over the lawn mowing while I was away. And he needed a machine just to mow our acre yard here, as you can see. I mean, we have the pool, so that takes up a good bit of the yard, but we live on about an acre, and we have to mow our grass just about every week. So him and I were talking a little bit. He wanted me to pick a good machine for me to use, but he wanted me to share it with him, so he could, mow the lawn once every week or two while I was away. And I've always been a fan of these older garden tractors, like the 210, 316, the Cup Cadet 129 that I have, all from the 70s and 80s. If you haven't seen those videos of my other tractors, go check them out. So I've always been a fan of the older equipment, but I decided that, since my dad and I were compromising, I figured our best bet would be for a replacement for the 316. Our best choice would be to buy something that was new and had a decent warranty, and that was, built fairly stout instead of some cheap little piece of garbage, because we've had a couple of those machines before, and I didn't want to have to go through that again. So we decided on an X500 series, because they're medium duty. They're not the cheapest machine, but they're also not the most expensive, and, not the most, full-blown machine you can buy. But it's just right for us. It's just the right size. And it has a good warranty, so my dad can run it, and he could, beat it up, and the dealer will cover it for a few years, and the warranty should last until I'm out of college. And at the same time, it's still, a heavy enough machine to handle all the lawns that I mow every week. I mow between 8 and 12 acres a week. Sometimes it fluctuates, but I'm going all over town, mowing lawns and picking up new properties, and some of them are real rough, some of them have a lot of hills, and some have a lot of low spots, and some of them are always full of weeds and saplings and stuff like that I have to mow over. So I needed a machine that was going to be pretty durable for it, but wasn't, too expensive. So that's why we picked the X500 series. And we picked the X570. It's a base model. It's like the entry-level model of the series. It doesn't have any of the deluxe features. There's a couple things I added on it that I thought might have made it worth the price. But I just wanted to make a video for you guys, because I've been using this tractor a lot, and just this past week it actually turned 100 hours already, which is kind of crazy to think about, since we've had this thing for less than a year. But you can see I just barely missed the 100-hour mark. I was in the middle of mowing a lawn when it turned 100. But what I decided to do for you guys, since there's been so much speculation and my videos have gotten pretty popular, my X570 videos have gotten pretty popular, I decided, since a lot of people seem to be interested, what I'm going to do is make an update video for every major service interval that this machine hits during its lifetime. So it just turned 100 hours, and I'm making this video. Then I'll probably make another video at 250 hours, and then I'll make one, a few years down the road when it hits 500 hours. So this will be the first update. Like I said, I've been using this machine like crazy. It had 15 hours on it at the beginning of the year when I started mowing in very early spring, and it just turned 100 hours this past week. So it just goes to show you how much I use it. So I'll give you you know, an overview of it, some of my thoughts. I'll add some insight and tell you some pros and cons about it. First, some of the pros. Overall, I am very impressed with the machine. It's, you know, it's almost a commercial grade, you know, lawn and garden tractor. It's not the heaviest machine you can buy, but it's also not a cheap little consumer grade Lowe's or Home Depot piece of junk either. Like I said, I've been there before and I didn't want to take that route again. The X570 is more than suitable for all the mowing and rough work that I have to do. And as you can see, I'm doing my best to keep it clean and very well maintained. It's actually kind of rare that you see it clean and not covered in a layer of dust and dirt. So, this is a pretty rare sight, but I cleaned it up for you guys, and I just got done doing the 100-hour service on it per the instruction or the owner's manual. For a new machine like this, I try and adhere to the owner's manual as much as I can. And you know, when you use a machine as much as I do, and for commercial work, you have to keep up on the maintenance. You have to protect your investment. I want to start by talking about one of the things that seems to concern a lot of people. A lot of you guys know John Deere is definitely not the cheapest brand to buy from when it comes to parts and equipment and stuff like that. But I can tell you, for the most part, you know, the old saying is you get what you pay for. When it comes to John Deere equipment, sure, you're paying a lot for, you know, green paint and some heavy parts, but in the long run, it's worth it. I mean, this machine cost us $6 grand new with the 48-inch deck. The X570 with the 54-inch deck costs, I believe, $6,300 new. But like I said, you get what you pay for. Would you rather spend $6,000 once and have the thing last you, you know, for many, many years, or would you rather buy, you know, a $2,000 or $3,000 Home Depot riding mower and have it last 10 years at the most, at the absolute most, and then have to replace it and get another one that's just going to wear out in 10 years again? It's really not worth all the hassle. You might as well just make the investment once and, you know, live with it. So that's why we took a jump up to a commercial grade, or fairly commercial grade machine. A lot of people these days complain that, you know, the cheaper John Deere riding mowers are made by MTD and blah, blah, blah. Well, the truth is they may share some components with the you know, Craftsman and MTD brands and those cheaper ones, but John Deere does build them in their own factories. The D100 series are built in Greenville, Tennessee, and the bigger garden tractors like this one are made in Wisconsin, like they have been since they started making them 50 years ago. And overall, you know, like I said, you get what you pay for, but it is, especially the X570, it is a very heavy-duty and suitable machine, and it's treated me quite well. I do have a couple complaints, but I'll touch on that later in the video. So I mow, like I said, I mow somewhere around 10 acres a week with this thing. And overall, the tractor runs and drives really good. It's a good, strong running machine. Here, I'll start by opening the hood for you. If you guys saw the video I posted back in March, I added the brush guard and the front weight bracket because I thought, you know, for what the machine's worth, it should come with those. I think it should come with those standard, but they were an option. So I had to buy them separately and install the brush guard and the weight bracket. But they make a nice touch. They add a very, they make it look very aggressive, and this tractor is heavy duty enough that it can, you know, it's built to go through tough conditions like that, or sometimes you have to put weights on the front to run a rear tiller or something like that. But that just goes to show you, because these are options, it shows you how heavy and durable the machine is built to be. It's got the Kawasaki FS730V, 24 horsepower. This engine has been very, very reliable. I really don't have hardly any complaints about it. Most of the commercial grade mowers you buy these days have a Kawasaki engine, either Kawasaki or Kohler. But these days, I mean, I've worked on all different kinds of engines and all different kinds of lawn and garden tractors, and I can say in this day and age where everything is, you know, made cheaper and lighter, Kawasaki is probably one of the only brands of engines that I could buy and trust. And Kawasaki actually does manufacture a lot of their parts in the United States. I've noticed Briggs & Stratton and Kohler and some of the other ones are outsourcing parts from China and Japan and things like that. Kawasaki probably has the most American parts in them compared to the other brands, and this one is made in the US, believe it or not. And these are commercial grade engines. They're built to, I think, let me put it this way, I think Kawasaki engines are best suited for mowing. Maybe not for ground engaging jobs like tilling or snow blowing or things like that. They make plenty of power, but I think they're best suited for mowing and running, you know, being put under a steady load running a mower deck for hours on end. And this engine just does a fine job of doing it. Although I have noticed, I might have mentioned this in one of the past videos of this thing, you really have to let this engine warm up for a good 10 to 15 minutes before you engage the deck, because if you engage it at anything less than half throttle, it stalls out. I don't know if that's just because the Kawasaki engines don't make a lot of torque on the low end, or because the deck is really that heavy, but I can definitely say the Kawasaki engine doesn't make torque like the old Kohler series, the old Kohler K series single cylinders, and the old Onan horizontal twins, because I've owned them, and they're probably the best small engines made. But for, you know, modern equipment, Kawasaki is definitely the way to go, and they're built much more durable than your typical Briggs & Stratton or Kohler, because I've seen the insides of both of them, and Kawasaki definitely seems the best choice. So John Deere's engineers are some of the best in the world. They know what's good. So if they use Kawasaki engines, you know they have to be good. But yeah, the Kawasaki in this thing runs really good and strong. I haven't run it in a couple days, so I'll climb up on here and start it up for you and let you hear it. I have to do this with two hands because the choke is spring loaded, so bear with me. It starts right up. In the winter, I was having some problems where it would take a little bit of extra cranking and it would smoke a lot. But that was because I only started it up maybe once a month. Now that I use this thing, you know, 4 or 5 days out of the week, it starts right up as soon as you hit the key, and it doesn't smoke or anything. Runs good, makes tons of power. But I have noticed you do have to run wide open throttle. I mean, these little air-cooled engines get the most cooling if you run wide open, so I only mow at wide open throttle. I've noticed, like I said before, the Kawasaki doesn't seem to make a whole lot of low-end torque, but you don't want to mow at half throttle or less anyway, because it's just not good for the engine. That's one of the only flaws I've really found with it, but other than that, it's a great engine. This is the first V-twin Kawasaki I've owned, and I'm very impressed with it. For mowing anyway. Maybe not for, you know, running a tiller or something like that, but that's why I have other garden tractors. I mean, I could hook my 210 up to a tiller if I needed to. This machine is just used for mowing, that's it. I'll shut it off here. But yeah, overall, I'm impressed with the Kawasaki engine. Let's see. A lot of guys have been complaining. I had a couple guys leave comments on some of my videos. You know, saying something like, "Oh, these new X500 machines are junk. They're made out of plastic and this and that." And you know, I've heard that many times over. And truthfully, I'm kind of sick of hearing it. Now, a lot of you guys may know the older John Deeres from the 90s and early 2000s were notorious for having cheap plastic hoods. If you've seen my LT155 and LT133, they had junk plastic hoods, but John Deere has overcome that flaw. They've really worked to engineer a sturdy plastic hood. Of course, I have the brush guard on the front of this, so even if I do run into something, I don't have to worry about breaking the hood. But if I didn't have the brush guard, I still think these hoods are fairly durable. It's for the most part, they're pretty hard to crack or break. So they've definitely upped their game there. And yeah, they do have a plastic dash tower. And a lot of the controls and things like that are plastic. But the good thing about that is there's no metal to rust. So if you leave these machines outside, the rust doesn't get down on the frame there and then rot everything out. Because a lot of times with the metal dash towers on some of the old machines, the bases get rusted and then the frame gets covered in rust and all the stuff gets corroded. So that's one of the good things about having plastic instead. Sure, it may be a little bit lighter, but like I said, John Deere knows what they're doing. And what a lot of you guys have to understand is, you know, with the way our economy works nowadays, with, you know, such rapid advances and increasing population, you know, manufacturers are going to take, you know, they're going to try and cut corners and lower costs as much as they can. to maximize their profits. And you know, products and materials are going to get lighter and cheaper and thinner. But John Deere, I mean, John Deere has switched from metal to plastic on a lot of things, but you have to understand they still do put a lot of quality and effort into their good machines. Not necessarily their low-end machines like the D series, but like I said, you get what you pay for. You buy an X500 series, sure, you buy a lot of plastic, but you buy a lot of sturdy plastic. Now onto the actual performance, aside from the engine, in terms of like mowing, this thing is great. It's actually, believe it or not, this thing actually saves me time compared to a lot of the previous machines I've owned. This thing mows really, really nice. Perhaps one of the biggest advancements with these series is the Excel Deep series mower decks. The Excel Deep series decks are actually made out of a thicker gauge steel. This deck is 10 gauge steel. I believe the previous generation were 11 gauge steel, but I'm not completely sure. Also, the frame on the machine is 10 gauge steel. It's the same design as the X300 series frame, but the X300 series frame is 11 gauge steel. But the mower deck is, just the mower deck on this is heavier than the frame on a lot of the cheap like LA and D series machines. So that just goes to show you, you know, the quality difference. And another thing about these Excel series decks is they're mostly flat across the top, so there's not really much of a space for water and grass clippings and debris to gather, except for like around the spindles. But that's, you know, with these spring-loaded spindle covers, they're very easy to clean out. A lot of the older mower decks, like I'll show you this one here. This is a 46-inch deck from my 210. This deck was made in the 80s, and they made this same 46-inch deck shelf for, God, probably 25 years. They're very durable decks, but they're also very thin steel, and they have, you can see the whole back half of the deck is recessed, so when you have the spindle covers on, they collect a lot of rainwater and debris and stuff, and that's what rots them out. With the new A-series mower decks, they've definitely eliminated that because they're much heavier and they don't have much areas for water to gather and rust them out. And the decks have a very deep shell, so they actually stand the grass blades up and cut them standing straight up, which is supposed to leave a much better quality cut, so it doesn't just like breeze over it and slip over the blades of grass, which is another thing I love about this tractor. So I can with the K72 transaxle, I can fly across the lawn and not have to worry about going back and cutting a second time, because the 48-inch Excel Deep deck just cuts that nice. It's a very durable deck. And in terms of comfort, I don't really have many complaints, if any. The seat's comfortable. It's an X300 series seat. It's not the full high back seat used on like the X590, but I could care less about that. I put a seat cover on it just to protect it. Steering is nice and easy. It's got the big steering wheel. The only thing that I think could be improved with the steering is it uses a rack and pinion type setup, which is the same setup that they use on actually on most lawn and garden tractors these days. You can see the rack and pinion down there. For what this machine's worth, I think it could have come with something a little bit more durable, like an automotive style steering box. If any of you guys have been around the older John Deere and Cub Cadet garden tractors with the big heavy duty steering boxes, you know what I'm talking about. They're a little bit more durable, like the old Ross type steering boxes that a lot of them had. They're a bit more durable and they're rebuildable. They're not as flimsy. This tractor steers really good. I think it has only a 16-inch turning radius, so it turns really sharp. I mean, I can go around trees and stuff without a problem. So it does turn very sharp. I can't really complain about that. It has a little bit of slop in the steering, but it's actually had that slop in it since it was new. Like I said, it's not really a huge concern of mine, but I do think for what the machine's worth, for the $6,000 that we paid for this machine, I think it could come with a slightly more durable steering setup. But like I said, it's not a big deal. Also, for what the machine's worth, it could have come with 16 by 6.5 by 8 front tires instead of 15 by 6.5 by 8. That's another way that they cut the price on these X570s, by using slightly smaller front tires. The X580 and X590 come with the standard 16 by 6.5 by 8 front tires, but these are, the only difference is these have a slightly shorter sidewall. It's not really a major concern of mine, but it's just another way that they cut, or that they cheapen it up a little bit. Like I said, it is the base model. But other than that, and then it's got the, like I said, the K72 transaxle with the twin touch hydrostatic. The transaxle is really strong. I mean, it climbs up hills and stuff like it's nothing. This is the first machine I've ever owned with a differential lock, and I have found it very handy because most of the lawns I mow, the houses have like a walkout basement, so there's a huge slope from the garage down to the backyard. And these slopes are really steep, some of these slopes that I mow, so the differential lock does come in very handy. For those of you who have a tractor with it, I would recommend, if you have to use the diff lock, hit the brake first and come to a stop, then push the diff lock pedal, and then move forward or reverse. That way you reduce wear on your diffs, on your locking, or your axles, I mean. But the diff lock does come in very handy. I've mowed some very, very steep slopes with it. The only complaint I have with the twin touch hydrostatic is I think this is a problem that John Deere's have had for quite a while, like dating back to the 345s and 425s and 445s, from what I understand. The reverse pedal, I don't know if it's the shock absorber or what, but the reverse pedal sort of sticks, and it takes a minute to return to the stop position when you take your foot off of it. So when I'm mowing and I'm backing up, I have to take my foot off the pedal early so I can anticipate, when to stop. You can't just expect it to stop as soon as you take your foot off, so that could be a bit of a hazard, just something to keep an eye out for. But it's the dampening system that they have on the pedals does that, so it doesn't stop as soon as you take your foot off. So just something to be cautious of. The electronic dash display is really cool. I know a lot of guys think it's really, really neat. It is very handy, I will admit it. The only thing is, obviously, being a digital display, you don't really want to get it wet. The couple times I've hosed off the tractor, it's kind of messed up the digital display. Like the throttle level doesn't read right, the fuel level doesn't register correctly. So you don't want to get, obviously you don't want to get the electronics wet, but that's just something to pay attention to. And I forgot to mention this in the in-depth review video, but apparently these have like an OBD2 style diagnostic system, so you can plug in a code scanner and figure out what's wrong with it if it gives you a service or maintenance code, which is actually kind of neat. Like I said, I didn't find that out until just a little while ago, but knock on wood, I haven't had any problems with it yet. The other thing is, the fuel gauge isn't exactly the most accurate. I've noticed, like if I'm mowing on a hillside or something, even if it's just for like 15 to 30 seconds, I'm on a hillside or I'm on a steep incline, it registers a different fuel level, and then once I get back on flat ground, it takes about a minute or two to get back the correct fuel level. So I've learned not to trust the fuel gauge completely. It's sort of accurate, but not quite. So just keep an eye on your fuel. That's all I have to say about that. But otherwise, it is really handy and is really neat. I never really liked the foot control lift from the start, but the more I use it, the more I like it. It's actually kind of nice because while I'm mowing, like if I'm mowing high grass and there's like a manhole cover or a water pipe cover or something sticking up, all I have to do is just push the pedal in, raise the deck up, drive over it, and then let it back down again. So that's pretty handy. Overall, I am very impressed with the machine. The only, aside from like the steering and the couple of little things I mentioned, the only major problem I have with this machine is mower deck removal and installation. This 48-inch Excel deep deck is a very high quality and very durable mower deck. It cuts great, it does everything I need it to, but it is a pain to take off. I mean, it's taken, I've only had this deck off a handful of times, but it has taken me quite a while to figure out how to get it off and how to mount it back up. It's pretty simple for the most part, but the deck is just so heavy and it's difficult to get everything lined up and hooked in properly. The only attachment points are these two spring-loaded J-pins towards the rear of the deck. You can see you have your draft arm that hooks up to the lift rock shaft there, which runs off the foot pedal. And then the two J-pins hook in there, and the front draft plate hooks in there. What you have to do to take the deck off is pull those two J-pins out, and then basically slide it forward and slip this draft arm off the hook. And then you have to stick I don't know if you can see here, there's a slot right here. You have to stick a 3/8 ratchet in there and then turn it, rotate this whole arm to take tension off the belt so you can take the belt off. It's a very durable setup, but like I said, it can be a pain to, because everything is so heavy, it can be a pain to get everything lined up. I'm going to try to include some pictures if I can you can't really see here, but the two J pins back there have nylon lock nuts on the backs of them, and I guess the way that they install them at the dealer, they thread the lock nuts on a little bit too far, so when you pull these spring-loaded J pins out, they don't come out far enough. You have to kind of force them out of there. You can see the lock nut back there. So what I did the first time I took the deck off was I actually backed off the lock nuts a couple threads, so I had more room to pull the pins out, because otherwise the pins weren't coming out. I think that's just the way they set them up from the factory or at the dealer, so that's just something to be cautious of. The other thing is these two hooks on the front here where the draft plate goes in, there's really not a whole lot of room for you to slide the draft arm through, so what I'm actually thinking of doing is grinding off a piece of this right here so we have a little bit more room. And then the belts on these are very high quality. They're actually made in Germany, so they're real thick and sturdy, but they can be a bit of a pain to take off and put on. I actually would recommend having a second person, one to help you take the tension off and another one to put the belt on. It should be easier than that. I think I just need a little bit more practice with it, but it can be a bit of a pain. Like I said, I think I just need more practice. Last time I had this deck off, actually just at the end of the week, of this past week, you know, I did the usual. I pressure washed it, I sharpened the blades and everything. I also went ahead and undercoated it with some graphite lubricant paint from John Deere. Some of you guys have probably used it before. Basically, because graphite acts as a lubricant, if you spray it under your mower deck, it keeps the grass from sticking. Because what happens with these high-flow mower decks is that they shred the grass clippings up, and then the grass gets piled up under the deck, and it becomes very tough to remove. And with the high airflow of this deck, and so much, you know, all the grass I mow, there's so much stuff getting caught up under there. So it took me a very long time to pressure wash it and get it clean. And there's the welded pieces under the deck allow for more pockets for stuff to, you know, gather and build up. So it takes a little. It takes a little extra effort to get it clean every time you take it off. But when you use the machine as much as I do, it's very important that you keep the mower deck as clean as possible. I'm going to be taking the deck off every 25 hours to clean it out, I think, just because, you know, I mow a lot of grass. So I hope the graphite lubricant really helped it. That should keep the grass from sticking. I would highly recommend doing that if you own one of these. It'll save you some headaches in the future. There's not really much else I have to say, although, as some of you guys know, if you saw the video that I put up of me putting some accessories on this machine, for what the machine's worth, I think it should have come with rear tail lights instead of reflectors. Now, if you saw that accessories video, you know that I installed a set of tail lights. These are made by a guy named Jeff Walters. I'm going to include his email in the description of the video, because I've had a lot of people asking where can I purchase these. He kind of makes them on the side, and he does a very nice job with them. This particular set that he sells comes with a special flasher relay. It lets you adjust and change all different kinds of settings, change flash patterns. There's like 8 or 9 different flash patterns, and I got these because I do a lot of mowing at night, you know, in the dark, and a couple of the lawns I mow are up the road. I have to drive this thing up the road a couple miles, so I put the flashers on and hope that people see me. They usually tend to work pretty good. But for what the machine's worth, I think they should have come with tail lights from the factory. Not necessarily tail lights with flashers, but definitely tail lights instead of the reflectors. That's one way that they cheapen them up a little bit. After the first 50 hours, I changed the oil in the transaxle. It wasn't too hard to do, except the transaxle has 2 separate drain plugs. One for the front part and one for the pump. So you have to remember that when you change the oil. And then you have to make sure that everything is cold when you do it, because all the hydrostatic pressure from running around and heating up the transmission, it will register as a different level. I'm sitting on a bit of an incline right now, so it doesn't look quite level, but you have to make sure you fill it up to this top line here. It took me several tries to get it there, because I either put too much in it or I let too much out. Or it was still too hot for me using it to register the correct level. So you just have to be careful and make sure that everything is cold and that the tractor's been sitting for a couple days when you change the oil. But other than that, the transaxle has been real strong. Like I said, it climbs hills and goes over rough terrain without a problem, even with turf tires. I thought about getting the Carlisle Field Tracks heavy-duty all-purpose tires, but I'm actually glad we got the turf tires instead, because I don't really have a need for the aggressive tires. I've got a set of them sitting in my garage anyway. I use them on my 210 for plowing snow. But yeah, I mean, that's basically all I have to say about the X570. Like I said, what I plan to do is make a video at the, I guess the next one will be at the 250 hour mark, and then I'll do another one, I guess, at the 500 hour mark. Every time I have to do some major service or adjustments or repairs on this machine. But so far, we're 100 hours in, and this machine has been super reliable. Those are just a couple, the flaws I mentioned are just a couple things to be aware of, and I figured I'd make this video to touch on some of the things, you know, some of the complaints that I've heard from people. You know, if you're one of those naysayers who believes that, you know, all the new stuff is junk and that John Deere is overpriced, you need to, you know, get behind the wheel of one of these things and really put some good hard hours on it and just see for yourself. I do run my machines hard. I will admit, I run them hard for long hours at a time. I mean, when I go out to mow, I'll run this tractor for probably 5 or 6 hours without shutting it off. I always let it warm up for 10 to 15 minutes to make sure it's warm enough and has enough power to start the deck up. And I always let it idle for 10 to 15 minutes before I shut it off. That's the best thing you can do for these air-cooled engines, in addition to keeping the right oil in them. Just real quick, I'll make a note. The oil filter is kind of hard to access with a regular filter wrench because of this plastic shroud right here. So what I actually did was I went to the John Deere dealer and bought a socket style filter wrench. It sticks right on the filter, and then you use a 3/8 inch ratchet to take it off and put it back on. I would highly recommend getting one, because there's not a whole lot of room to get in there with a regular filter wrench or a set of pliers. But I just wanted to make a quick note of that. But yeah, so here you guys go. For those of you wondering, hopefully I answered some questions. If you have any more questions, feel free to contact me or leave a comment on my video or message me, or you know, do whatever, and I'll be glad to get back to you. Like I said, if you're going to go brand new, John Deere is definitely the way to go. I'm not just saying that because I'm a John Deere fan. I truly believe that John Deere builds a quality machine, and for the most part, for the $6,000 this machine cost, I think for the most part it was worth every penny. There's a couple little things that they could change or that they could improve for what it's worth, but overall I'm very impressed. So hopefully I'll get some GoPro videos with me, you know, mowing with this thing soon. I've been so busy lately, but I figured I'd make a video now before I take it out and start getting it dirty again, mowing grass. As you can see, my grass needs to be mowed, so I think I'm going to take it out now and get that taken care of. So there you go, guys. Thanks for watching, and catch you on the next one.